Hi guys and gals, Shane Stevenson here at the Buffalo Naval Park, and for today's video I'm kind of continuing one that I did in the 29 and 29 for the month of February. If you've watched those, thanks for your support, and we've finally reached 10,000 subscribers, so thank you all! How about that? Thank you very much for your support. So I talk a little bit about what I'm going to talk about today, in that why some flagships and not others for the CLGs. Right, and in that video, I'll put a link in the description for you. I am standing by the 5-inch hoists. So a little background. The USS Little Rock CL-92 had, of course, turret 61 through 64, the 6-inch 47s on board. During the conversion, they only kept the forward one and converted, where I am now, turret 62 into mount 51, the twin 5-inch. All right, and way up top, and I'll get into that, way up top are the two hoists, and you can see those in the video, why some flagships and not the others. It would be very, very interesting to see, in that video I also talk about the Topeka and the Galveston. Boy, I wish those were around today to do some comparisons. So for CLG 3 and CLG 8, they were not flagships. They made CLG 4, 5, 6, and 7 flagships, and therefore they were able to have different armament leading from the forward superstructure down to the bow. And they would have kept turret 61, turret 62, mount 51, 52, and 53, all right, those waist-mounted forward-facing. So they had 2 6-inch and 3 5-inch guns aboard. And that follows more closely the original configuration, again, at least up forward. Ours and the others had to be converted because they needed more staterooms and more living space for as a flagship. All right, so 4 officers, 4 sailors, and officers attached to whatever fleet, 7th, 6th, 2nd. All right, and they didn't need those spaces so much on the Galveston and the Topeka. The radio rooms were also greatly converted, though Little Rock's was one of the smallest at only about 3,100 square feet. So radio/communications as a flagship, certainly other flagships had a little bit larger radio space than we did. So again, now we are down in the lower handling room of the converted 6-inch to 5-inch. All right, let's take a look at some of what we got going on here. Well, there we go. So this is a blueprint from USS Miami. I believe it was CL-89. We have blueprints from CL-92, but unfortunately not the second platform, which is where I'm standing. So what we'll see is, here's the turret 62 hoist. You'll see there's a powder room, powder, and powder. So surrounding this on the second platform, surrounding the triple hoist, are all powder spaces. For the one that we have, turret 61, they were able to hold powder mostly down below in the lower handling room, and then also up the turret. All right, so if I'm remembering right, within the 6-inch turret, going up a couple of decks, they were able to hold about 320 projectiles as the hoist is moving up the barbette into the turret itself. So I can see with USS Miami, the powder would have been stored down here, right, as is evidence on that blueprint, and then going up would have been where the projectiles could have been held. All right, in our turret 61, you go through here, there's a rather large powder room, all right, and we do have one small projectile space, or two small projectile spaces down here at the lower handling room. So maybe that just changed from the blueprint. And then this very large, moving forward, a very large powder room. All right, which may be evidence here. If you can see that, I'll get the light off of it. You might be able to see some welding. So there was a door here. So it's interesting. I had a curator tour recently, and we came down here because they were interested in seeing the space. So that kind of prompted this video because you know, there's just a lot of evidence that there were doors here. There's also, I don't know if we'll be able to see it, but right here, there's a weld mark. So I'm kind of thinking that they would have been able to pass from this large powder room forward, which is evident right here. You can see it, and that's only, you know, 60% of it right here. You can see it a little bit better here. Right, that large space. You can imagine that was for turret 61 up forward and turret 62 aft here. And again, the welds on the doors kind of represent that as well. Sorry if it's a little blurry. All right, but you can trust that there's weld marks there, like they've re-welded it. So taking a look on the deck, that might be the better shot with the flashlight, you can see the rounded weld of the triple turret, which would have been here. Just like in our forward one, turret 61, the three hoists right here, here, and here, and then going up through the rest of the barbette, and there is second deck. All right, so through that grating is the two 5-inch hoists. Of course, isolated and separated out of a barbette because we needed that space for officers and staterooms. So what they more than likely did, I don't have any provenance or evidence of this, is that they, since we have Mount 51 of the 5-inch twin, they probably took these hoists here from Mount 52 or Mount 53. All right, so they cut out the triple hoist that would have led through the inner barbette here all the way up, right, to turret 62. Cut that out completely. Had to reconfigure the decking to cut for hoist number 2 and hoist number 1. All right, and then that leads to the upper handling room, which you can see on the tour route here at the Naval Park. All right, and then into the twin 5-inch. So let's look at this blueprint from our configuration in CLG-4. This is much cleaner, I take it. So now you have hoist, right there and there. And then you have powder magazine, you have powder magazine, you have projectiles, and powder. So on the two sides, on port and starboard, immediately from the space you have powder, and then heading aft you have projectiles. So right now I am about here. Sorry, the lighting is not great. I'm about here, facing forward. So if I was to turn to the right, what am I looking at? Powder magazine. So here's the insulation, then you have the void, and then you have the hole through there. Nice space for the projectile, for the powder. Okay, going back, if I was to walk through, we have a large 5-inch powder magazine here. Now there's a lot of hydraulic on the deck, so I'm going to try to avoid that as much as possible. But here it is here. All right, to store powder. Now again, there's, there you go, right, maybe? All right, there's evidence of pass-throughs here and there. You might be able to see again those welds after the doors were removed. So this would have looked really different in her original configuration. Now just heading aft, we are going into the projectile storage space. Here you go here. And then again that leads to a smaller compartment here. All right, now unlike the turret, they would have had minimal projectiles, say in the upper handling room. There were racks to store it, but not by the hundreds. All right, so most of the projectiles for the 5-inch were more than likely stored down here in these two spaces. So unlike the turret, which would have been able to hold as you're going up the barbette into the turret itself, there had been a deck to store 320, 325 6-inch projectiles. Most of that for the 5-inch were stored down here. And again, there's pass-throughs. All right, especially in general quarters. There's another pass-through here. All right, now what's interesting also, a cool little archaeological thing, is that in our turret 61, which you see also people see on the curator tours, is that the pass-throughs are not like these scuttle types. They are actual cylindrical, where you put the whole thing vertical and the door opens and rotates within the door itself. So there's a pass-through, a scuttle, not a horizontal pass-through like you'll see here, all right, but a vertical one. So the crew would put the powder vertically, and then the door, like a Lazy Susan or something, the door would rotate and it would come out into the actual handling room itself. So I really wish we could have seen the Galveston and the Topeka. Well, I mean, it would have been great just to have another CLG of any configuration here anywhere in the world, but we do not. So we can imagine, we can study, we can look at blueprints, all right, and then I know there's a lot of CLG fans out there. You should always come down, visit, because this is the last one in the world, and you can see potentially some of these spaces. All right, well, this is where I've got to head back up. Everyone, it's a little harrowing for my old bones, but can't thank you enough for your support And thank you for helping us reach 10,000. Stephen and I are going to be doing a special video this weekend, thanking everyone. And you know what? We will see you again soon. Please leave questions, comments. If you like this video, give the thumbs up. If you really like it, subscribe. And we will see you again soon. Thanks very much.